Hello, Internet! I'm HamsterBomb.
And I'm Zach.
And this is HITBOX, the gaming podcast where we talk about whatever we feel like talking about. Gosh darn it, and guess what? It is, as we record this, New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve!
I'm not sure when you're actually getting this video, but still, we have to obviously record stuff before you watch it. Funny how that works. And since it's this wonderful New Year's holiday, we decided we were going to ring in the new year by talking about all the great games that came out in 1997.
Over a decade ago.
Yes. Which is actually a really great year for video games. I know every single time we cover one of these, it seems like we have a new slew of games that are like, wow, these are so great. And there's a bunch of them that are just notable and interesting things to talk about during these.
Yeah.
And since, as we've mentioned in a couple of these past, if you missed a couple of the yearly ones, we decided to pick a single game that came out that year and just kind of play it, something that we can kind of zone out and play.
Yep.
And on that list is one of both of our favorites. Maybe my favorite, Castlevania. I'm not sure. This is Castlevania Symphony of the Night. We're going to be playing in the background while we play this. We're going to get to talking about this in a moment, but before we wanted to dig too deeply into this, I wanted to cover one other thing. And we do mention when, like, say, a new console comes out and kind of talk about, you know, what that means for the industry.
Right.
But there's a lot of other things that... this was the first time I saw and really realized, like, oh, shoot, there's another thing that happened in this year that really affects games, and I feel like doesn't get talked about enough. And this, I really just want to talk about, very briefly, the life of Gunpei Yokoi. Because he dies this year in a tragic car accident. Gunpei Yokoi, you could probably say, is one of the unsung heroes of the entire industry.
Yeah.
This singular man may have been the turning point that made Nintendo move from a card and toy company into a game company.
Yeah.
He made the Game & Watches. He made the Game Boy. He, well, unfortunately, died feeling like a failure because his last contribution to Nintendo was the Virtual Boy.
Yeah.
Even though, if the poor guy would live to see it, the 3DS is a culmination of all of his ideas together. It's the 3D virtual reality, it's the handheld nature of the Game Boy and using what he built on from the Game & Watch era.
Yeah.
All of that came together, and he really did shape Nintendo's itch to make, like, the quirky, almost, I don't want to use the word toy, but just more inspired, like, think outside the box kind of video game consoles. And that is Gunpei Yokoi through and through. And losing him, I guarantee you it did damage to this industry. We don't know what we lost, but I can only tell you how much we gained because of him, even with him not being here already in 97. So, very sad to see him go, especially taken away from us so early.
Right.
But wonderful contributions to the gaming industry. So,
yes.
Let's not have everything else be a downer for the rest of this. I wanted to just bring that up because he did great stuff, and nobody talks about that guy.
Not usually, no.
This is a great opportunity, too, not because we lost him this year, but because when will we ever get a chance to talk about this guy? You think we're going to talk about the Virtual Boy? I'm sorry, no.
What, and it's 13 games?
Yeah, oh my gosh. I feel so bad for that thing.
I know.
It really was just too ahead of its time. Because, I mean, I would not be shocked if nowadays Nintendo came up with a VR headset and started selling games.
That's what a lot of rumors are talking about.
Yeah, I would, like, imagine the Switch Pro rumors stuff that I really don't care for. Let's not get into it. Yeah. Imagine that's actually a VR headset.
Yeah, I could see that.
I would not be shocked. I bet you if Yokoi was still here, we might have had something like that sooner.
Oh, more than likely.
That guy really pushed and just made so many crazy contributions. So anyway, we want to focus on the fun stuff, all the games that came out this year, and there's, once again, a lot of them. And we're going to be starting with the one that we are playing with right now, Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Journey back to 1792, baby.
This, if you have not seen the Castlevania games up to this point, you should at least recognize this is very different than what we've had before.
Oh, yeah. Well, at first, that kind of throws you a little curveball.
That's true, yeah. I forgot about the introduction scene.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is... when I was a kid, I think this was, like, one of the first games that I remember actually being exposed to, because I had no idea what video games really were as a kid.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, because my parents were strict, and they're like, nah, it's like... You got movies, you got books, just play outside or something.
Yeah, dude, I know that feeling.
Until I could prove that, you know...
This was mind-blowing back then. I know this doesn't look great, but, like, I remember even in high school messing with 3D modeling programs, which was a long time after this.
Yes.
Aging myself, but even then, trying to build something that looked that nice, you would have crashed the machine. You would have even trying to render just this one camera rotation would have taken a weekend.
Longer than that, I'd wager.
Yeah, because there's so many polys, the textures, everything.
Yeah, because Toy Story came out 2 years before, and for certain renders, it took them literally like overnight just to get a couple frames rendered.
Frames, yes.
Yes, here we go.
It was huge. So yes, you are right. This actually does have a little bit of a trick to it. You feel like it's going to be a traditional Castlevania as you play as Richter, but no. We'll get to it later as we'll see. We're going to be playing as Alucard for the entirety of the game.
Right.
But still, so yes, it does kind of show you. It knows what original Castlevania is, but it's going to have a very big departure from this. Castlevania Symphony of the Night supposedly was inspired mostly by The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past.
Is what they say.
And I have always made the argument that Zelda and Metroid, which is really the game that it was inspired by. If you can't tell from the genre title that would be inspired from this, Metroidvania, the Vania part is referring to Symphony. It's not referring, it's not talking about Castlevania, NES, or any of the other Castlevania games. It's talking about this.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, we have to talk.
You don't belong in this world.
Die, monster!
And that I was once again given flesh. This scared me as a kid because, I didn't know video games could do this. I'd seen animated movies talking all that, but I'm like, oh my gosh, this looks all so weird and so cool.
And another thing, we're not seeing it on a real CRT TV.
Right.
I have seen Dracula's portrait in a CRT. It is freaky. These people who did sprite art were pros at figuring out how to blend with specifically limited color palettes. It looks so nice.
Oh yeah,
especially the red glowing eyes. It looks nothing like the way that it looks right there on that screen. Anyway, we have kind of a fake boss fight here.
Yeah. Well, the thing I find funny, especially as a kid, I never understood it. Like, why are we opening with the boss fight? And then I realized, oh yeah, this is a sequel to Rondo of Blood. You're playing the end of Rondo of Blood on easy mode.
Yeah, it's super easy mode.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you cannot fail this.
No,
can you?
No, you can't, because
even if your HP falls down, doesn't Maria save you?
Yeah, Maria, one of the girls you rescue, she just comes up and says, "Please gather your strength," and I run out of parts to use my item crash, so I'm just hitting him in the kneecap. And
I love the sprites for this.
There we go.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Still going.
There we go.
There he's out.
Woo!
So yeah, the Metroid part of this really being, because I want to go back and say, the reason why I say that Metroid and Zelda were so close together and why I would keep describing it to people, one, you got to forget about the genre. Obviously, one's a space sci-fi theme, the other one's medieval theme.
Yeah.
Forget that. The game itself, Metroid, is a huge open environment where you are slowly exploring and gathering equipment in your own direction. You're choosing where to go, and that is determining how powerful your character is.
Yep.
Legend of Zelda is, for the most part, the same thing. I think the good ones are.
Yeah.
Where you're in a large, maybe even a hub world, a larger area, and then you find dungeons within there, and the dungeons may be ordered, as in, Metroid also has generally intended order for areas you're supposed to go to, but it's the same thing. It's kind of letting go and letting you do your own thing and explore and find new stuff.
Right,
And taking that concept into Castlevania up to this point was very linear.
Yeah.
So you were basically just get from point A to point B without dying, or running out of continues and just keep killing everything that's in your path in a very straightforward manner. And this is letting you explore the entirety of the castle. For the most part, you're unlocking new areas as you find new upgrades.
Right.
As in Metroid. That's really a Metroid thing, not really a Zelda thing.
Well, and I was going to say that I can see where they're coming from, at least with Zelda, because in order to get to certain parts of the game, it is a key and lock system, like in Link to the Past.
You have to get the 3 pendants to get the Master Sword. You need the Master Sword to open the door on the top of the Hyrule Castle.
But especially prevalent, like you said, in Metroid, that's much more heavily gated.
That is the name of the game.
Yes.
Right.
So, and that's what they wanted to do with this, because I think they actually were finding some old Castlevania games in bargain bins not too long after they were released, because like you said, they were so short.
Yeah.
And so one of the people
and hard.
They're difficult, but once you beat it and mastered it, what else was there?
Right. Speedrunning it, that wasn't a thing. That was actually, a lot of games didn't get speedrun communities for almost a decade at least afterward.
Yeah, right.
It was just not a concept.
Oh,
back
good.
then.
I actually got above 70 health.
Yeah.
One quick thing before we talk about anything else.
Uh-huh.
The opening fight against Dracula determines your opening stats as Alucard, how well you do. So, like, if you die, you begin, like, with weaker strength.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, this is the big differentiating thing between this and a lot of other Castlevania games. You can level up, you can equip different equipment, you have stats to deal with, and like you said, it is definitely a lot more open, because if you hit the select button, there's a little map screen.
Yes, and it looks uncannily like the Super Metroid map. Also, I love the sprites and animations. But yes,
I know.
when we're talking about Metroidvania, the Vania isn't talking about the large open environment. Usually that's the Metroid half. The Vania is really the action RPG running around, usually with a melee weapon anymore when you see most Metroidvanias.
Oh, my favorite song in the whole game.
Oh yeah,
Dracula's Castle.
There's so much good music in this too. The art style in this, which at the time, people were making fun of this game because at the time 3D was all the rage. Everything had to be 3D, which in the end, all of the stuff that tried that early 3D didn't age so well.
No, it doesn't.
And it didn't really look so great at the time either. But the fact is, it was 3D, and people kind of lost their minds over that. But anymore, things in this era that stuck towards sprites just aged a lot better. This game still looks beautiful to me.
Oh yeah, even today, like it was pulling off a lot of stuff that there was no way they could have done in the original like Super Nintendo Genesis era.
Yeah.
Because there are some rooms in this game that uses a camera rotation built on a 3D background with all the 2D sprites and everything rendered in perspective.
The closest we ever got to that, it was in Super when we're like rotating around stuff and just that's just transforming the background. That's not like actual perspective things in the background and parallaxing with you.
Yeah, no, everything.
There's so much.
Yeah, exactly. Gosh, do we even need to try to explain what this game is about?
It's a Castlevania game. I mean, you basically know what you're doing. You're exploring. Let's just say you're exploring Dracula's castle and bringing an end to him. We'll just leave it at that.
Daddy issues.
Yeah,
there's a lot of daddy issues.
Right, because this one we're playing as Alucard, the son of Dracula.
Because the Belmont line has been not ended, but things are happening. Shenanigans have ensued, and that's why you've awakened and you're going in.
Yeah. Play it and you'll figure it out. We don't need to dig too much into it. Obviously, that's not the point of the game anyway.
No.
It's really just like looking at all the innovations that Castlevania has gone to, and I wish we still had more like this. Why would they not keep... Konami. They're an interesting studio. I love a lot of their games. I do, but...
Yeah, this was one of my favorite... Was, being the key term, one of my favorite video game makers of all time.
Yeah.
And,
It's still one of your favorite video games of all time,
Oh,
correct?
this? Oh, heck yeah. No, this was the thing that really got me into video games, as it were.
That sure says a lot.
Because I was going to say, I was like 10 when I first saw this game. One of my really good friends back then had a brick PlayStation. And this was one of the games he had for it. I'm like... And it's, like I said, it scared me to death because I'm like,
I know,
oh my
it's
gosh.
freaky. The explosion. Now, it's not quite as, I want to say, gory as some of the other ones, or like
not
out the wall weird.
No, not like Bloodlines on the Genesis that had like actual
that one was messed
mutilations
up.
and stuff. Yeah.
This one's more of like finding its own niche, figuring out what makes something look Castlevania and feel Castlevania in terms of its music, its graphics, and the way that it plays and feels.
Exactly.
This is like the culmination of everything that it could do up to this point. And unfortunately, after this point, we probably aren't going to be talking about Castlevania again.
Not too much, no.
Yeah,
not near as much as we have been.
No, and that really is a shame, because this really is a great game.
Yeah, like this. I don't think there was any other system that could have really pulled off a background like this that easily.
No, you probably could have done something to at least create an illusion to look like that on like Super Nintendo if you're going backwards. But you would probably need the Super FX chip to pull it off.
Yeah.
And you move to the N64, maybe, but at the same time, like I don't remember much of any N64 games that even tried to do full 2D sprite based and then use the 3D into the background and just take advantage of all that extra memory and power that you can take advantage of to make the gameplay better. Nobody was thinking like that back then. It was all like, I know it sounds really weird, but graphics was number one.
Yeah, it was
everything
all
was
about
all about
3D.
graphics.
If it was 2D, it was a baby game that you did not want to play anymore.
Right. I remember, and I've probably even brought this up on HitBox before, I've seen advertisements or game journals at the time where they're commenting about, say, hey, look at, and we're going to talk about it later, Mega Man Legends. Like, look at how awesome Mega Man Legends looks. This game is amazing and cutting-edge 3D technology. And look at this sissy little Castlevania game hiding in the past.
Oh my god, yeah.
That is what and of course, it's all that 90s cringe, too, as it's written, but the thing is, in hindsight, we look at it like, Mega Man Legends is kind of a disaster, in many ways. And then this, like, that didn't have to be 3D.
No, didn't have to
It
be.
just looks so cool.
Oh, it does. I don't know. It just, this game will
But
always
it's still
be...
sprite-based, and it looks so good, and the gameplay is what's so great, too.
Yeah. And I think for me,
yeah.
the animation helps sells the gameplay.
Yeah, the moonwalking, the
after
after images, yes,
after images,
the trails behind you, that's
yeah,
so good.
And it's just, he feels like he's the right weight when he's walking, and when you're pressing triangle,
the back
which
step.
is... Yeah.
So many Metroidvanias copy this move because they know that it's faster.
It is, yeah.
Like, I know I just recently played Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, and that was, like, how I moved around the entire world.
Oh,
just backstep everywhere.
Why would you do it any other way?
I know. It's like in Super Castlevania, you
Yes.
have to moonwalk backwards up the stairs.
Oh, you have to?
Yeah. If you don't go backwards, you're not doing it right.
No, you're not. No.
So anyway, yeah, there are still lots of bosses in here that we're going to find. Zach's going to be fighting them as we're talking about other games. We're probably going to get distracted with this. We're going to try not to.
Yeah.
We're going to try and stay on topic here
Because
today.
I'm not used to talking and playing games at the same time, so please forgive my poor performance.
This is going to be a real challenge because a lot of these games that we're going to be talking about, only Zach is the expert on. I've not played, I'm going to say almost half of these, including this first one we're going to talk about, Diablo.
Diablo!
Tell me all about Diablo,
Oh my
Zach.
god, Diablo.
I mean, of course, I know Diablo the series. It's still
Yes.
alive and around today.
Diablo is one of the gosh dang diddly best games ever created. That's just how it is. So, Diablo was obviously the first game in the Diablo franchise, created by Blizzard North, I think. And they wanted to try to create a more action-oriented game at the time. And the thing was, PCs at the time really weren't that great. Oh, wrong one. At like handling a lot of frenetic action all that well. And one of the other things that they really wanted to try to do too was they wanted to make something that was more along the lines of a roguelike. But they didn't want to just copy the original Rogue, where it's like when you died, you lost everything, and you had to replay everything.
It's almost like the advent of the Rogue Lite.
Right, because everything was randomly generated. So from the town layout was roughly the same, but the quests you could get from the town of Tristram would be different upon different playthroughs. The dungeons, each and every time you would boot up a new game, would be completely different.
Cool.
And the thing was, like, you know, you're supposed to go in because you're hearing there's dark rumors about something going on underneath the Cathedral of Tristram, and you were just there just to do hero stuff and clean house. And you just murder hundreds upon hundreds of demons, devils, skeletons, and monsters and everything. And the thing that made it really addictive was the power progression. Because with each, there was 3 different classes, I believe. There was the mage, there was the thief class, or the archer, and the warrior, the barbarian. And each one had different attributes. The fighter was more the melee type, who would be able to go in and just tank a bunch of hits and mow down enemies. The mage was more based around trying to get magic out there and just mowing down everything with giant AoE hitboxes. And the thief was a bit more of an all-arounder, could do both pretty easily. Oh, whoops.
Ooh,
there
unlucky.
we go. Yeah, I know. Woo! There we go.
Wow.
But anyway, so the thing was, not only was that the case, all of the weapons and armor and amulets and everything that you could get in the game was randomly generated as well. So there was like so much that you could do to build out your characters that you wanted. So like you could go for a thief that was like more about magic and long distance bow attacks and stuff. Or you could go with a fighter that was more of a tank than a damage dealer, so you could actually wade into the middle of a demon horde and just take them all out.
That kind of customization level's very addicting. It gets that way very quickly,
oh my gosh, yeah.
too.
And that's why I love stuff like Diablo 2, Grim Dawn, Titan Quest, and everything like that. It was the progenitor of that kind of action RPG that we call it today, even though the statistics are not like the main focus. But they really...
it's still kind of like half of all indie games anymore.
Yeah,
like
right.
One half kind of becomes like, are you the Metroidvania or are you the roguelite?
Yeah, exactly, right. And this was like one of the games that would eventually help repopularize RPGs for the 90s, followed by a couple more next year. And also really helped to cement, Blizzard as, again, another powerhouse developer at the time. Because we were getting Warcraft at the time, Warcraft 2 was not that far out, and eventually we'd be getting stuff like StarCraft and stuff like that we might talk about later in the future. But it's a really good game. It's available on GOG, I believe, and also on arena.net store or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't really want to support Blizzard right now, so,
That's
whatever.
a whole
That's
other
me.
topic.
Yeah.
That could be a whole other episode, honestly.
It very
Let's
much could
change
be.
the subject
Yeah.
then. Moving on to another game. Let's actually jump consoles.
All
We're going to
right.
go, what's the N64 doing right now? We're looking
What is
at
it doing?
GoldenEye.
GoldenEye!
007.
Yeah.
Now, this is one of the games that recently was just brought to NSO, and
Yes.
with a huge implementation, online multiplayer for the first time. Now, GoldenEye, of course, in terms of any other, say, Halo-like, a first-person shooter, multiplayer, competitive, game like this, it obviously is not going to age very well. A lot of people have very fond memories of this game, as they should. It was very good at the time. But, boy, it plays kind of janky. But this is Rare. Now, the Rare. In the game that they made after this, because they actually lost the rights to, the game kind of in this series, they lost the rights to the 007, James Bond theme, so they actually made their own IP, being Perfect Dark.
Yep, exactly. We have GoldenEye basically to thank for console FPSs, like what the juggernaut of Call of Duty, Battlefield, and Halo would eventually become.
Now, it's not just multiplayer. There also was a single-player campaign. You're basically playing like a James Bond movie.
Yeah, exactly. It basically...
shoot.
There we go. Well, I was facing the wrong way. But
Yeah,
that's okay.
that was a bummer. Slogger is so much easier in this game.
Oh my lord, yeah. I tried going after him in the Super Nintendo version of 4, and it's like, no,
That was
I'm
so
good.
hard.
I am good.
That was
thank
the
you.
hardest part of the game. Dracula was not even that hard.
No, oh my gosh, by comparison, no, he was not.
No.
And there we go, first boss is down.
It's almost like they do this just to show you how much stronger Alucard is.
I think so, and I think it does its job really well if that's the case.
Yeah, because, oh my god, Slogger. Anyway, so I knew we would get distracted, but yeah, 007 it's fondly remembered by many, many people just because of maybe just it being a very, kind of like Doom, a very popular, accessible way for people in their home to play a new style of game they've never experienced before.
Exactly, because first-person shooters were attempted on consoles before, but to mixed results. Like Alien versus Predator on the Jaguar, if anyone knows what a Jaguar is. Yeah. It only had a D-pad and like the phone number buttons on the side of it.
I remember playing several of mixed quality that were effectively all just variations of tank controls.
Exactly.
Yuck. You're playing like third person because they just could not figure out how on earth are we going to get this to work.
Right. I mean, well, how would you do it with just a D-pad and just like some, just a couple buttons?
Yeah, exactly.
But with what Rare did was they took the first-person shooter, which was more synonymous with PC gaming at the time, and made it on console. Now, granted, the N64 was not the best controller for that.
No, but it had an analog, finally.
Exactly.
It could at least have more precise movement and aiming.
Yes. Exactly. The thing I find funny is that the game was originally supposed to be a on-rail shooter. And then somehow turned into a freaking first-person shooter that's...
For the best.
Yeah.
For the best.
For real. Exactly. Yeah. That's why you have the weird controls where you actually have to hold the R button in order to enter aiming mode, and then you use the analog stick to move around. Because I think that's the way you were originally going to be playing it.
Yeah.
And the other thing I love about it, and the thing that made it to where console first-person shooters could be a thing, instead of having like dozens and dozens of labyrinthine levels like Doom or Quake or something like that, there was a few levels. There was, I think, like a dozen or 10
It
levels?
wasn't that many, yeah.
No, but they had missions in each level.
Exactly.
And with the different varying levels of difficulty, adding more missions. So, like, in the first level of GoldenEye, you're at the dam before he bungee jumps, just like in the movie, where you're just following a truck, and that's basically it. You're just trying to get to the entry point in order to infiltrate the bad guy's base. But on the harder difficulties, you then have to put up, like, a signal jammer in order to hide your movements, and in other ones you have to find intel or blow up computers on top of finding all that stuff. And it's that replayability that it added that really cemented the single player action. And what I find funny, where GoldenEye is considered the multiplayer game, like you were saying, because, you know, not only the game had, like, or the game system had 4 controller ports.
Exactly. It was very easy and accessible for many people who would also, like, know it because they would get to play those missions at home, and then they're familiar with it, and they go to a friend's house, and then they can all play something that they're on equal footing with.
Exactly. But the one thing I found out was that multiplayer was an afterthought in this game.
Yes, I forgot to mention that.
And it just blows my mind, because it's like, really? And because Nintendo and Rare were like, no, we don't want multiplayer. And someone on the team didn't listen, and I think it was only like 1 or 2 people that basically developed the entirety of the multiplayer system of that game.
Ridiculous.
And God, how... And that
people
just
were
shows,
so talented.
Exactly. And well, and that also shows you what video game development has gotten into. You need entire teams to do stuff like that anymore.
It's not like anything like that can even go through the cracks.
No.
It's almost like a Marvel movie list of people go through credits of any giant games that you see anymore. So yeah. It's kind of a shame that things like that just can't happen, but...
That might be another episode in and of itself.
It may be, just how corporations and just the size of the industry has changed over time.
But yeah, anything you wanted to add about GoldenEye?
You know, I think it says a lot just from the initial fan reaction of how excited people were that this was finally coming to NSO, even though, like, all of nobody was excited about the price of N64 NSO.
Right.
That's how, like, people immediately did this 180, like, this is horrible. How can you exploit these people for charging this much money for ROMs? Extremely old ROMs on top of that. And, okay, come on. You're giving it to us for free for the other ones, and you want to charge, like, this much, and it's on top of paying for online? Like, there's so many reasons. We could probably make another video on that, but we're not going to.
No, not today.
No, not today. So, just looking at that, and people immediately going, wait a minute.
Wait.
You have GoldenEye with online multiplayer?
I'm in.
Like, that's how big of a nostalgia bias people have with that.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So it's huge.
And it was the one other thing too is that it also, if you have the Rare Replay collection on Xbox One, that was downloaded for free, and you actually had the fixed controls with the dual analog sticks and everything.
Okay. We gotta really get a move on.
We do.
We are already. We were what, 3 games into this, and we have so many more to talk about.
Lord,
we're almost halfway through the episode.
Again, it's not as big a year, but the games that do come out are huge.
Yeah, and I'm actually really scared about next year in particular because it's both. It's a lot of games to talk about, and they're all big. So this one. This next game we want to talk about was actually on the PlayStation, and it is one that I know of, but I never got to play myself. So, Zach, you get to tell us all about Alundra.
Alundra! Have you played The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past?
Zach, I love Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past.
Well, you would certainly love Alundra on the PlayStation 1, because that is exactly what it is.
I know, it definitely looks it when I see it online. It actually reminded me more of, what was the name of that Sega Arabian Nights theme game?
Beyond Oasis.
Beyond Oasis, and it was Oasis something. I was thinking Ever Oasis, but that's 3DS.
Yeah.
It really looks like that game, which is effectively kind of like another style Zelda kind of clone.
Right, but with a lot of beat-em-up elements in that. Right.
Yeah.
But this game was actually made by a lot of people who had made Landstalker, which was another Zelda-like on the Genesis. In this one, you play as the titular character Alundra, who has the ability to enter people's dreams.
Yes.
And the dungeon, most of the dungeons. Yeah, in this
it's
game.
It's almost like Persona.
It's almost like Persona or Psychonauts.
Psychonauts is actually a much better comparison, yeah.
So it's like, it controls from a top-down perspective, and you have different weapons, and as the game progresses, you actually can get different weapons, like a ball and chain, you can get bombs, you can get this, that, and the other, and it's a smaller game in scope by comparison. Like, there's only basically the one town and the wilderness and, like, some of the different dungeons around the town. but everything that happens in there, it is really, really good. Like, it builds upon the smallness of the size of the map, but expands it as you go on, because, like we said, the people of Inoa are having these terrible dreams because of an evil demon, and it's your job to excise the nightmares from them. And you are going through, and like I said, as the game progresses, you're just basically going to town just to go into the dungeons.
Yeah.
And they range from everything from like just going in like a weird void where you're just on like wooden platforms in the void to like weird like nightmare mansions and stuff. And the other thing that is notable about this game, it's a lot of fun, but my God, are the puzzles mind-bending and hair-pulling at some points.
Really?
Yeah, like this game prides itself on like just having such brain busters, and you just sit there and think, can I just continue? No, you have to solve this jumping puzzle with a weird camera angle. But I don't wanna. It's like, well, you gotta if you want to beat the game. Okay.
It's a shame.
But they're worth it, though. Once you figure out the puzzles, you think, oh my God, yeah, that was so obvious. Like, there's switch puzzles, there's box pushing, but there's also, like, riddles and stuff that you have to read and use as clues to solve puzzles in the dungeon. It's a really, really solid game. And the team who brought it to the States working designs did phenomenal work back in the 90s, translating and bringing a lot of Japanese-only games to the West that we never would have gotten otherwise. And the translations that they did, especially for something that I love as well, the Lunar games, are very well done. They add a lot of their own humor, but usually they try and keep the spirit of the original in there.
Yeah,
even though
good.
there was like something in there where you could like someone talks to you about eating Wheaties for breakfast in your medieval fantasy game. Or one of the main characters in the town of Inoa is basically speaks like a surfer bro.
Yeah.
and my name is Bon Air, man. It's like,
even
okay,
Final
sure.
Fantasy did stuff like that. I mean, you can speak Beaver for crying out loud.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's not out of the ordinary, but whatever. It's still a fantastic game. If you have the ability to put money on an old PS3 account, you can actually still buy it on the store.
Yeah, luckily, because they changed their mind on shutting that down.
Yeah, but they added so many extra steps, it's almost not worth doing anymore,
yeah,
unfortunately.
It's really just a pain. Unfortunately, there's no other way that you could possibly play such a game. Anyway,
Maybe.
we should probably move on. Though, before we do, now, I'd heard of the original, it has been on my radar, but has there actually been any sequels to this? Has it been coming out anymore?
There was a sequel in like 1999, 2000, and it was not good.
Okay,
it's completely 3D. Its tone is completely different, and it's like it's not hardly a.
It's kind of remembered as a one-off then.
Yeah.
Okay, it might be better so. Remembered as a one-off.
It's better remembered as a one-off, unfortunately.
But still, I mean, one-hit wonders are still great. I would actually rather see that than see a game that just never seem to figure out what it wants to do after. We're playing one of them. Like a one-hit wonder almost of a game series that could just not figure out what on earth it wants to do after this point.
No, exactly. Or like Sonic. You know, just
poor
saying.
Sonic. Yeah.
I love Sonic games to death, and I do
Frontiers
want to play.
is decent.
Yeah.
I hear it's decent. It's not like the game that we all envision, you know, the true reimagining of what Sonic is, but honestly, I don't think an open world would really do that for Sonic. Anyway, we're really going to move on. I swear we are not going to cut this time at all. This is going to be such a long episode.
I'm sorry.
Because, Zach, we have one of the biggest games ever next we're going to talk about.
What are we talking about?
Final Fantasy VII.
Well, here's like an hour of time gone.
This could be an entire episode, and it probably will be. I'm more than likely going to be reviewing this sometime in the near future. It's not going to be the next Final Fantasy game that I review. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, no, that's a huge undertaking.
Though the next game I'm reviewing is going to be a Final Fantasy game, by the way, just as a little tease. But it is not this one. This may be the one after that. And I want to make sure that I cover this because it is not the remake. The remake, I love. It's a great game. It is not the original. They are different games.
Exactly.
Largely, this is kind of similar. I'm going to compare to Ocarina of Time here and say that it's kind of doing what the original Final Fantasy, I'm going to say 6 and 3 did, because it's that cyberpunk-esque magic world.
Yes.
And pretty dark, too.
Oh, God, yeah.
That world, and bringing it into 3D, low poly, but also like pre-rendered backgrounds, and you're kind of moving around on top of them.
Yes.
And because of that jump to 3D, kind of like where we had Link to the Past versus Ocarina of Time, a lot of people fondly remember this one because I cannot overstate, as we mentioned before, how important it was to be in 3D in this era.
Oh, God, yeah,
So
exactly.
just seeing that this game, for one, like, its ambitions were so big, it couldn't fit on the N64. They had to keep moving it around, and then eventually they're like, oh, it doesn't even fit on one disc for the PlayStation. This game was so big. They wanted their pre-rendered cutscenes to be in here too, which are different than other models that you're seeing. There's so much, it's so cinematic. The story is, we're not even going to go there. It's outstanding. The characterizations, I think everyone has a great character story in 7.
Some could be considered as simple, but it's the fact that they still pull it off really well that really draws me into some of those characters.
Also, what may be the most important aspect of 7 compared to the others, I think it might be the most approachable Final Fantasy game.
Oh, yeah.
Because the materia system allows basically any character to play however you want them to be.
Right.
If you want Barrett to be your magician, whatever, you can do that.
Even though he's got a gun arm?
Even though he's the tank with the gun arm, you can do that.
Yeah.
Cloud is a good catch-all character, so however you want to play your main protagonist, you can do it. He can do everything. And that's just the way that materia works. Materia being like, say you have a materia of fire. You can take this materia that you have and either give it to Tifa, or you can give it to Aerith. You can hand it around and it will still retain its effects as you're moving it from character to character.
And unlike in Final Fantasy VI, where the Magicite actually leveled with the character, the Mako itself, the materia itself levels.
Right.
Yes.
Which actually helps you, like, move it from one person. So you have, like, a really great Cura, and you want to give this to, like, say you happen to just lose a certain character we're not going to talk about. You need to move your Cura around so that you at least have that ability to take advantage of something you've already leveled up.
Exactly.
Yeah, so there's so much more to it. Like I said, like the music, Zach.
I love Nobuo Uematsu's work on all the previous Final Fantasies.
And Tetsu Nomura's art design, I feel like for this one in particular, so great.
But what I was going to say was, I honestly think that Final Fantasy VII is probably his magnum opus, Nobuo Uematsu's score.
Probably. And that's those are big words too. Let's not understate. It's not like the other Final Fantasy soundtracks are weak in any regard.
Oh, Dancing Mad, the final boss theme for Final Fantasy VI, is absolutely stunning. But overall, in terms of overall quality for just the music alone, Final Fantasy VII, I think, blows it out of the water.
Wow. Yeah, it is huge. And it really would have been the game to overshadow something like what we're looking at Symphony, because it's not, like I said, that 3D is so important. And then, especially with nowadays, I would be so mad to see something like this. It's commercials. Look up the commercials for Final Fantasy VII. They are 100% the CG cutscenes. You have no idea what kind of game this is.
You know how mad everyone got at E3 before they started putting, this is pre-alpha footage, not really in-game footage and whatnot?
Yeah, and then they just show a bunch of pre-rendered cutscenes and you have no idea what you're watching.
That's what that was.
Watch me watching literally any of the Video Game Award reaction videos that I have on the channel, and I am complaining about this continually. It drives me insane because I want to see what the game is. You're trying to sell me on a game. I'm not buying a movie.
Right, but no, Alex, they're trying to sell you on the feeling of playing the game, not the game itself.
That was brand new at the time. That did not happen. You got to think, like, these people grew up playing Atari and NES, where that didn't happen. The closest you would have on the NES is like Ninja Gaiden.
Exactly.
As if you could even beat the levels to see the story in that one. Where this one, like, it's an RPG. If the more time you put into it, you will inevitably get there.
Yes, exactly.
And everyone will be able to see it, and everyone gets to share in this story. This crazy story. One of the coolest stories in gaming at the time.
Yeah, and I think even now still holds a lot of value.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's a reason why it 100% deserves 3 whole PS4 to 5 remake parts just to do this game justice.
And I will admit, the more I've been thinking about it, the more it's like there is an awful lot in the game that could be extrapolated upon. And so it's like, because it's a huge game, but it never really focuses on any one thing for too awful long in the
Right,
original.
and I have a feeling the next 2 parts are going to go on fast forward just to get through so much content, because I think the developing of what had to be Midgar to make Midgar exist, it had to be that whole first game just because of the severe undertaking to even make that. And now the rest of them are going to be like, okay, now we can finally leave Midgar and try and get the rest of the story done.
And the one thing I do appreciate about the new remake, or remake part 1, is the fact that, they sell Midgar like nothing else.
Yes. Oh, it's gorgeous.
Because, it's only like maybe 3 to 5 hours tops.
Yeah, you can
in the
blow
original
through
game.
it. You really can.
And, for the time, I would have bought that it was a giant mega city with 2 different levels, one for the rich folk and one for the peasants.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the illusion of like just very, very smart 3D pre-rendered backgrounds that you run by. The way that everything feels in the slums versus the top in Shinra, or up in the higher plates of Midgar. And I really don't want to spoil any of the story bits at all, because it really is one of the best games ever. If you have not played this is not one of those games where we can say like, oh, well, Lundrum, sorry, you can't pick this up. You have no excuse at FF7, the original.
No.
You can play this on anything right now, and it's like $8.
Yeah.
And it goes on sale frequently, too.
Yeah, you can play it on Steam. You can, I think now you can actually still, you can get it on PS4, 5, right?
I think. You can definitely get it on Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, you can definitely get it on Switch, PC. Yeah, it's readily available.
Yes.
More so than any other time in history, really.
Which is great. That is great. I think, if anything, Square is kind of ahead of other companies, Nintendo, in some regards, for allowing people to play some of their games.
Yes.
Though I am kind of very disheartened by how they decide to price their legacy content. I wish that was a little more given away, because especially when people are seeing it as so easy to just try and steal or emulate the copies of the software instead of actually finding a way to purchase it for themselves. We want to own the game.
Yeah, because when they announced the Pixel Remaster Collection, I was already asleep by the time they announced it, and it sold out for the physical version of the Switch and
it was
the
at
PS4
1 a.m. for like 1 hour.
Yes.
I think. That was it.
Yeah.
And it was in a random day on Saturday. This could be another whole video, and we're already almost over time on this. Zach, we can't. I know we want to, but we can't. I promise eventually we'll be able to talk more about Final Fantasy VII. And there will be more Final Fantasy games we will keep talking about, I'm sure. Because Final Fantasy never really
went away, really.
Yes, that's better. I was going to say stopped being amazing, but there were... It hiccups a few times, but I think it's making an outstanding comeback.
Yeah, I hope so, especially with 16.
The rest of the remakes, yes, and the way that they're remastering Crisis Core, which I actually just recently beat yesterday.
What did you think of it, by the way?
Still a very great game, and I'm very, very glad to see that thing off of the PSP.
Yeah, oh god,
I think that was the biggest problem with that game. It was on the PSP. Alright, so anyway, we gotta move on forward and keep talking about, guess what, Zach?
What are we talking about?
More Final Fantasy.
Oh my god!
We're talking about tactics. Speaking of Final Fantasy 16, a lot of people are so excited about that game because it seems to be like a revolutionary return to original medieval Final Fantasy.
Yes.
But with Final Fantasy Tactics meshed in. I've been doing a lot of talking. How about you tell us all about Final Fantasy Tactics?
Alright, Final Fantasy Tactics. Oh my god, where do I even start? Okay, so, y'all know Fire Emblem? It's basically Fire Emblem, but way better.
And we're not trying to diss Fire Emblem.
No, Fire Emblem is good. I'm no good at it. I do like playing it a lot, though. But with Tactics, oh my god, especially when it came out, because strategy RPGs were still not really much of a thing in the States.
Yeah, they were very minimal at best.
Niche almost.
Yeah.
Like, because we didn't even get
a lot of them weren't even being ported, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't get Fire Emblem until the Game Boy Advance.
It was really Sega, I think, that we had any of them at all.
Yeah, basically, the Shining Force games, which are good, which are really good.
Yeah, they are. Give them a try.
But with Final Fantasy Tactics, you had not only a really cool world in the world of Ivalice, you also had a beautiful story about war, what it means to have your morals, to stand your ground, brothers being torn apart by war, and the fact that we are being, like, we're reading an excerpt out of History of the War of the Lions as we're playing the game by a narrator or by an in-game historian, which really helps to sell the universe. You play as Ramza, who is fighting for one of the main houses. Excuse me, nearly choked on my spit. That would have been fun for like 10 minutes. And you basically end up being a commander of an elite unit of mercenaries. And you're just going around the world of Ivalice trying to stop your friend Delita from basically making the worst mistake of his life, but for good reasons. And I just pulled off a magic spell. I have no idea how I did it. And it was completely ineffective. Oh yeah, magic's a thing in this game.
Yeah, magic's also a thing.
Over. Oh wait, I remember one. Over, up, down, square. There we go.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Just showing off now.
Yeah, no, I'm just showing off. But the thing that really sells the game is not only the meshing of the tactics gameplay and the story, but the customization. Because the one thing that I love is that it imports the job system from prior Final Fantasy games, like 5 and 3. So it imports the job system, and what you can do is that you can actually build up an entire army of broken characters. You can have them multi-class and learn skills from one class and put them on your characters. And then, like, there are some builds people have been able to make with these things over the years. Like, I think there was, like, a Chronomancer mixed with, like, a Alchemist, and it's just... You just sit there and just watch the numbers just do stupid damage to the enemy. And
that's always fun to see, like, crazy combinations of things that, like, the game has so much customization that you can just keep playing it forever.
Exactly. And, you know, you actually are given a chance to grind in certain places. The one thing I will say that does bring it down, especially if you're a new player, the game can kind of, if you save in the wrong place, can kind of lock you into unwinnable battles.
Oh, that's a shame. That happens sometimes in certain games. I kind of wish it was like maybe a fast travel system or some way to get out of that.
Or something. But
or just grind. You need to be able to grind almost anywhere in any save in RPG.
Yeah, even though with strategy RPGs, like sometimes you really don't want to. Yeah, it feels like you don't
Story
want
could
to.
just lock you into something. Yeah.
Like you don't like. Is it just me? Because have you played any strategy RPGs really?
Not really to completion, but just dabbled in them. I think each one I start, I end up going, that was nice. I'm going to play something else for a while now, and I never get back to it.
Exactly. Yeah, but does it always feel kind of weird when you feel like you have to grind? Like you feel like you should be able to get through a battle without having to grind or the story?
Yeah, especially when usually in strategy RPGs, like it's almost like it doesn't make any sense. How come my actual character, he's not physically any stronger?
No.
You know, like, it's not like, I don't know why in strategy RPGs this bothers me more than regular RPGs, where, okay, the actual strength of this physical human who is holding a sword and a shield, how come he's stronger now because he went and did 10 more fights over there versus going right with this guy who is exactly the same? It should be the exact same pair-up. But, yeah, that's just the way they are.
Yeah, so again, maybe it's just me still not being used to strategy RPGs, because I have a few that I still want to get through.
I mean, not everyone can play everything. We
exactly.
try.
I try, but I also have my preferences, that's the thing, too.
We all do.
But it's a really good game. I think that it was Tactics Ogre that they just remade recently. But I'd say please give this one a shot, especially if you can find a copy of the PSP remake, which people have modded everything that you could possibly think of for the PSP version.
Okay.
It's really good. Please give it a shot.
All right, and we've got to go in like double speed for everything because we're already at like normal time for an episode and we're halfway there.
Oh gosh, how long have we been recording?
47 minutes.
Okay, that's better than I thought. I thought we were at an hour 10.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's next, buddy?
So next we're going to be talking about another N64 game, and Zach, I'll let you relax for a moment and just kind of focus on this. I know your brain needs to calm down. I got this one.
Thank you. What do you got?
Star Fox 64.
Oh, please talk about this. I will get too distracted.
This is also one of the best games ever. I really love Star Fox. Now, the history of this, I wish we had some more time to delve into this, and we actually can, because I reviewed this one. We could do a round 2 on this if we felt like it. But it's got an interesting history where Shigeru Miyamoto only really wants to bring back this series when there's some new technology. With the original, he actually made sure that it got created at all to test out the new Super FX chip on the Super Nintendo. And also, for the N64, it was basically sold and brought back and remade from that original game so that it could take use of the Rumble Pack feature, which was like so big for the N64. You would basically, I know it sounds weird that it was an external thing, but it even was on the Game Boy Advance, I think. I had a Rumble Pack Advance one, but you would physically plug in this giant cartridge into the back. That's actually why there's a slot in the bottom of those N64 cartridges in the bottom. You would slot this thing that's like the size of a game. And then it would just shake the whole controller every time, you know, something in the game would tell you, like, you just took damage. Or especially in Star Fox, when you would feel your whole ship, like, recoil from something as you're flying around. So effectively, it is the Star Fox game again. It's the same thing, except this time, instead of we have voice acting.
In an N64 cartridge.
In an N64 cartridge. Now, the game, of course, is still the same length, but with those alternating paths, the controls, the graphics, the gameplay of this, everything is so smooth. And the multiplayer of this is actually really fun.
Yeah.
If you've gotten a chance to play this is really fun. So this is, I would say, one of the best N64 games. In fact, I think it is. Correct me if I'm wrong. You can look this up in the future, Zach.
Okay.
I believe this is the top-selling N64 game that does not have Mario in the title.
Ooh, yeah, I am gonna have to look this up.
I'm pretty
I
sure
don't
it's.
remember.
I'm pretty sure it is one of the Mario Karts and Super Mario 64. I'm sorry, it's Mario Kart and Mario 64. I was thinking Mario Party, but it's not the Mario Party. I'm pretty sure this is the third best-selling. But sure, we'll have to look this up.
Yeah.
Oh, we're in a serious fight here.
Oh gosh, I hate the doppelganger.
I'm gonna say I have reviewed the game. Take a look at it. It came out this year. We gotta move on. I love Star Fox 64 though.
Oh, I remember his exploit. If you keep jumping and force him to jump, he can't fight you in the air. So I'm just gonna
Bible and bouncing.
Bible and
Bible bounce.
Uh-huh.
So, the next game we want to talk about very quickly is Croc, Legend of the Gobos.
Yes.
Now, Zach, if you aren't able to do this, all I can basically say is this is a 3D platformer on the PlayStation 1.
Okay, so Croc, from what I understand, actually started out as a 3D Yoshi game that Argonaut Software wanted to make.
Oh, that's such a I heard it. Yes, we've talked about this.
Yep. Oh, hey, I did it.
Boom!
Wow, usually
Very
I have
nice.
a lot of trouble with this
You got
one.
52 health left.
Oh, wow.
Great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So anyway, they pitched this idea to Nintendo before Mario 64 was in development.
Yes.
And a part of me almost wants to think that
This really should be known as the Mario 64 because it kind of is Mario 64 before Mario 64.
Yeah.
I can see why Nintendo would have wanted Mario to be that character and not Yoshi, though.
Yeah, exactly. Because, you know, I
Or,
love
and also to build it in-house. It's
Yeah.
kind of like, Dr. M64, who was making a remake of Metroid 2. Had he gone to Nintendo at the time, they would have been like, nah, man, we're doing that right now. We can't
Right.
tell you, but you have to stop. And, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a similar kind of situation,
but
except a publisher instead of a fan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was a partner they had basically screwed over at that point.
Yes, that's...
Which still...
Right.
So, Argonaut basically left Nintendo.
Such a shame.
Yeah, and they were approached by, of all companies, a movie company, Fox.
Yeah.
And they had their own video game division at the time, because everyone did, because they
Yeah.
wanted to make money.
Right.
And so they approached them and were like...
Kind of the fault of the crash, too.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's another video. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
No, you're fine. You're fine. But the thing is, they had wanted to, where they're like, hey, we'll give you the money if you make this game for us. Okay, sure, we'll take the ideas we had for the 3D Yoshi game and just basically make it.
Generalize it.
Just filing the Mario serial number off.
Yes.
Oh, wow, okay. And so...
Which I'm glad it still got to exist.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that I will say about it is that it is cute. The animations
Yes.
are really adorable. The charm is absolutely there, and
You're
I
about
am
to die.
about to die. And
Can you make it back?
yeah, I think I can. Anywho's, but the charm is there, and it's cute. The thing is, the controls.
Yeah.
It uses tank controls.
Yeah, as most 3D platformers did.
Yeah, and this
Mario
came out,
64, as we mentioned, was so revolutionary, and not doing that and figuring out how almost everything was going to be used after this point. So, yeah, it's part of its era, showing its age.
Yeah, unfortunately. But you know, it's a fun little collectathon. You collect little gems throughout the level in order to stave off a hit like Sonic, and when you take a hit, you drop all your crystals and you gotta pick them up. The whole point is it's a collectathon, you gotta save all the gobos from the evil Baron Dante, and just have fun with these linear levels.
Nice, that at least saves you beat that boss, too.
Yeah, right.
That was kind of a little much.
Whew, yeah.
Anyway, so time-wise, you're going to appreciate me cutting you off in the future, I
Yeah,
promise you.
but
we're going to
yeah.
move to more games. But yeah, check it out if you get a chance. It's
Yeah.
almost like an interesting relic of history, and that's why we wanted to cover it in here.
Exactly.
So anyway, this next game is also on the PlayStation 1, and this started a huge series that is still going on today, and this is Gran Turismo. And speaking of sales, I'm pretty sure...
Grand Theft Auto, maybe?
No, Gran Turismo.
No, it should have been. Oh, Gran Turismo. Yeah.
What were you saying?
I'm thinking of Grand Theft Auto. I've got.
We will also think of Grand Theft Auto in
We
this
will?
video.
Oh, sweet. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
spoiler alert. But we're talking about Gran Turismo. And Gran Turismo, I believe was, also speaking of sales, the top-selling game on the PlayStation.
I think so. It was either this one or the second.
Right, and if we, once again, you have to think about that mentality. It's not about, like, hindsight, the quality of the game itself. It's not like it's a bad game. It's a great racing game. But the thing is, this game, in terms of its graphics, like, this was top of the line. This looked incredible.
Yes.
You would look at Mario Kart 64 and laugh, even though everyone was playing Mario Kart 64. Of course, as I just mentioned, that was like maybe the top-selling game on the system. Like, it was huge. But still, racing was just a very big thing, and Mario Kart, of course, being a huge thing. This being its own series, it's kind of strange how it is evolving over time. We're probably not going to mention it more after this point, but we can't really understate how big Gran Turismo was. Even though it's still, like, alive today, it's really just alive today because of like what it was at the time. There's so many people who have so many fond memories of just what this was. It sold so well. Oh
my god, yeah. Multiple millions, like
10 something million. It's a lot.
It was like 17.
Yeah, oh my gosh, that's like modern day numbers. Like, that's ridiculous to see something back then. Like, gaming was not that big.
Yeah, exactly.
Not as big as it is now, as I'm trying to say.
No, I get you.
Is there anything else about Gran Turismo before I try and rapid fire us?
It's a great simulationist racing game, which doesn't hold up a lot to other simulation racing games of today.
Yeah, but, well, of course. It's on a PlayStation 1.
It was made by a lot of dudes who were really into Japanese car culture at the time.
Right.
So the car selection, I don't know how that worked.
You got so lucky.
I did. But the car selection was not that big at the time. But still, what we actually got out of it, okay. I'm not
Forget it.
Yeah. But what we got out of it, there we go, is a really fun game. The second game is better in my opinion, but still though, it's a heck of a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah.
So, give it a shot if you want.
So how about that Mega Man Legends thing we mentioned earlier?
Mega Man?
Mega Man,
That's a different Mega Man, but same thing.
It is a different Mega Man, yeah. We were just making the Mega Man joke, and I'm sorry, every single time I think of that.
Mega Man, Dr. Wily.
So yeah, Mega Man Legends, this was also on the N64. Now, from my remembering, this is the Tank Control 3D Mega Man.
Correct, it was an adventure game, yeah.
A very strange Mega Man game. If anything, I kind of wish this tangent didn't really... I don't think it works that well with Mega Man, but regardless...
Not the way it controls.
No.
But I do appreciate the fact they were trying to do something else with Mega Man besides just doing a side-scroller killing all the robot masters.
Yes, they were trying to figure out, like, okay, just like Mario, like, how do we evolve this character? And also, like, keep him inside the same world and evolve the world and figure out the characterization of the world. And that's what the game does well.
Exactly. And it's... I don't know. I just kind of wish that we got more because we only had the 2 games, a spin-off, and they never did anything else with them ever again. Which is like, really? Because the ideas are there. That's the problem. Because it's fun to explore the island and talk to the townsfolk.
I think it would do a lot better nowadays without, 90s jank in the gameplay.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem. Because it was just... 3D was absolutely so new, and it's like, what do you do with it?
Speaking of 90s jank, if I keep you on this awesome pace we got going here, Oddworld Abe's Odyssey is another very peculiar game.
I am not a fan of this game, but it spawned a really good franchise.
Yeah.
And one that was also really important as well. What do you got to say about Oddworld?
I've never actually gotten to hands-on play one of these yet.
Okay.
But I know enough about the bizarre nature of the game, the brutal world and setup of what you're supposed to be doing.
Oh my lord,
It's very disturbing, the game itself. I'm pretty sure you're escaping like this confines of this basically an imprisonment camp where you were work slaves, where you realize you're about to be like eaten the next day or something like that.
Yeah,
and it's this very dark, morbid escape game.
Right, which plays out like a cinematic platformer like Prince of Persia.
Right.
Because you play as Abe trying to escape, like you said, a meat processing plant, and the Madokans, the people that you come from, are going to be the next tasty snack because capitalism has killed off most of the population of the planet, which you made the snacks out of.
Yeah.
Why does that sound oddly familiar?
Yeah.
But anywho's, I don't mind it. Like, the thing that I don't like is that, again, it's a cinematic platformer, so everything is, like, really stiff. You don't have as much control as I would like in a platformer. And the whole thing is, in order to get the best ending, you have to save each and every one of your people, and if you miss just one, you have to play the entire difficult, I might add,
Yeah,
game
it's very
over.
hard. So yeah, that's probably why I've strayed from it. I keep looking at it like, oh, it's quirky, it's funny, and then at the same time I go, I don't know, man. That's a little much. Now I appreciate that it did get was that a full remaster earlier?
Oh yeah, new and tasty.
New and tasty, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and it actually plays a little bit more like a modern 3D or platformer that you could actually do a lot better with. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. It's good to see.
But yeah, I would say if you can, go ahead and give it a shot. You might like it better than we do.
Yeah, it's at least from the era and notable enough that we would be doing it discredit if we were not bringing it up.
Exactly.
So now we can finally go to that one game that you wanted to talk about so much, Grand Theft Auto.
Grand Theft Auto!
On the PC and PlayStation. Now, technically in the US we got this a year later. This was actually from in Europe first, because that's just where Rockstar originates.
Yep, exactly. So, let's see.
No, I believe the original Grand Theft Auto was top-down, is that right?
Yeah, the first two Grand Theft Autos were top-down, this one especially. This one actually came about because of a bug that they had, because they wanted to make just a straight-up racing game.
Yeah.
And with people on the side, like a street racer, right? But the thing was, the cars were so aggressive, the AI was so aggressive, it would not only try to ram you off the road, but it would run over people. And the cops in the game were like, oh, we can't have any of that, so they would actually be the ones to try to really get at you, too. So it's like, oh my lord, why are you doing this? So they thought, this is actually really cool. Let's turn this into the whole game. And because of a glitch, we got one of the biggest video game franchises of all time.
Yes, you'll have to look this one up too. It's if not in the top 5, the top 10 or so top selling single video games of all time, Grand Theft Auto 5, in all of its iterations, and it's another one of those Skyrim situations where it did so well, it is its own reason of why we are still waiting on a sequel, which kind of leaked. Let's not talk about that.
Yeah, no.
But still, yeah, it did so much, and at this point also kind of coming after that ESRB situation.
Yeah.
It also continued to push the envelope further of what was acceptable and what was not. So, yeah, another situation where Peggy is what they have in Europe. So yeah, kind of at own fault for making more restrictions, but restrictions and guidelines for the better, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Letting any market run wild is never a good thing. So
no.
So
exactly.
It's for the best. Anything else about Grand Theft Auto?
It's a really fun and open thing. Like, story isn't the focus.
Right.
So you take jobs from like phone booths throughout the whole game world of Liberty City. And yeah, you get to choose sides, and it's actually got some choice, which I find really cool, versus later Grand Theft Autos where you're just following a story in an open world.
I really hope you can get out of here alive.
I should be able to.
You have 16 left.
It's fine.
15.
It's fine, because watch what I can do.
You can heal?
Yeah, so so if you guys don't know, you have to equip your healing items. Go out of the menu, press the weapon button,
No. Now he's good.
Now I'm fine.
All right. So yeah, it's a good time. If anything, I feel like they kept not only developing what they wanted to do with video games and just like what Rockstar would later become, of just not just pushing the envelope of what people would find acceptable in a video game, but also like in terms of its gameplay, how far can we evolve the medium of what they're creating? And they are still known for doing that today, and that is great. And it kind of largely started here.
When they want to.
When they want to.
Or when 2K wants them to.
Yeah. Anyway, we have one last game, I promise. I know we've kept you here for a long time.
A long time, I know.
We have one more, and we can't skip this one. We have to talk about Fallout.
Yes. I love Fallout so freaking much. It was my favorite video game of all time for so long. Oh my gosh. Okay, have you tried the original Fallout yet?
It is on my list. I have. Okay. I know I've got it shelved. You know what my ongoing gameplay list looks like.
Yeah,
so
well, you're playing Shin Megami Tensei. I'm fine.
Multiple Shin Megami Tenseis. And other RPGs. I'm in the middle of Xenogears right now, too. And then I was playing Crisis Core. What am I doing?
You're catching up for lost time with your RPG backlog.
I guess I am.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so Fallout is probably one of the, like I said, one of the best post-apocalypse video games of all time. It takes a 1950s retro futuristic aesthetic and just adds a lot of dark humor to it. So adding some levity to the whole situation. So the main setup is you're part of a safety shelter called Vault 13. The water chip that has kept you and your people alive by recycling water for hundreds of years almost has gone out. And you need to venture out into the wasteland to find a new one, or else your people will die because of a water shortage. And you have complete freedom to go throughout the entire wasteland of, I think around, not Hollywood, but Las Vegas. And you have so much you can do. There's multiple factions on top of factions. The fighting system is a little weird today. It's really kind of clunky, but it's turn-based, and depending on your speed stat, it determines what amount of things you can do on your turn. And the other thing, too, is you only control the main hero you play as. The AI controls every other player you get to have on your team, which is fine. I mean, they do a competent job, and the AI does a decent enough job kind of letting the personality of the AI speak for itself to the character.
I don't consider that a detriment. I mean, there's a lot of great games. Persona 3 is another one where you don't have to always control your own AI.
Right.
Or your own party members.
I've always just been so used to doing it in every other RPG I've played. It just feels weird to me.
Yeah.
But the story is... It's kind of minimal because the story is the choices you make. And that's the big thing that sells me on this game and future Fallout games. Because you could just basically turn out to be a complete jerk, not misanthrope. That's what I'm trying to think. Misanthrope who hates humanity and you just want to rule everyone with an iron fist. Or you could be the savior of the wastelands and try not to kill as many people. You can take down the raiders who are taking people as hostages and slaves and... heck, I think you can even like be a drug dealer if you want, and just like find all the drugs in the world and just sell it to everybody. And it's like you could even be like hurt kids, and the game.
Boy.
But the thing is, the game dissuades you because if you try to hurt or kill children, basically bounty hunters will be sent after you from everywhere you go.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's like, it allows you to roleplay whatever you want. You could be a drunk who's good with energy weapons, or a fast-talking drug dealer. It's that choice that you have on top of everything else in the game. I'm sorry, I could go on and on and on.
I know you can. I know I've got to play it. It is on my list. And once I finally do, then we'll have the chance to round 2 this thing and give it a whole episode. Because it really deserves it. Especially while we're distracted and playing Castlevania Symphony of the Night the entire time.
Exactly.
I know. And you've actually done a great job of like still playing really well while trying to chat this whole time.
I appreciate that.
You only have one less thing that you've got to do, and you've made it without dying.
Whew.
You think you can do this?
Yeah, I can do this.
All right, Zach. What is your game of the year?
Fallout. And I love
now let's let him talk about Fallout some more.
Yes. So, woo!
That was close.
I forgot about that. Although I don't think I can get further because this one collapses way before.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
he
course.
responds.
Thanks.
Nice.
But anyway, so again, it's the open nature of everything. It's the choice. It's how you build your character. Because the one thing I want to mention that I love doing. Playing a stupid run. You can set your intelligence all the way to like 1 to 3, and it affects your dialogue choices. Like, hello, do you know what this computer is? Computer. You can basically play a Stone Age dude in the game. I love doing that. And the final boss, like, you can actually talk in a normal run. You can talk him out of like destroying the world or taking it over. Try doing it stupid. It's hysterical.
No peep, no die.
Yeah, no die. You bad. You talk funny. It's so funny.
Me big boom boom.
Yeah, I've got big boomstick.
So that is really saying a lot, considering this game came out this year, and I know that's how big Fallout is for you. And then of course we're also looking at like Star Fox 64, Diablo, GoldenEye, Final Fantasy 7.
Like I said, it's not a lot of like really giant games, but the giant games we did get this year.
No, yeah. They're just enormous. So I guess I've got a favorite game of the year, if we're gonna alternate. Is that how we do this? Did we alternate? It's been a while since we filmed one of these year ones.
Yeah. We
okay,
alternated.
So my favorite game of this year, I actually, right before we sat down to record this, I changed my mind. So once again, I'm just as torn as you are, because there are a lot of great ones on here, and I am going to go with this one, Symphony of the Night.
I see. Why is that?
Well, you know, the original one I had on there was Star Fox 64, and it's probably because, yes, if, like, right now, if you rewound my life and you said, like, in terms of how much I've played them, yeah, Star Fox 64, because I've had access to playing it more, and I loved it so much. But at the same time, this, game-wise, for me, is the better game. Now, I love them both, obviously.
Oh, obviously,
but this is just, like, the one that I want to return to, and I want to keep playing some more.
Oh, yeah. Gosh, I want to go back home, boot up my old PS1, and play this again.
Yeah, because now I just sat you down and teased you for an hour.
Oh, my God, I know. It's fine.
Yeah, but still, the Star Fox 64, I've also, like, played into oblivion, and, like, honestly, we were going to be playing that today for this episode instead, but I decided, like, since we had the ability to jump consoles and show off a completely different style of a game, I wanted to do that, and I knew that Zach would appreciate getting a chance to do this too.
I appreciate it, thank you.
So I really do love this game and what it's done, and I think if I was giving out the award of Game of the Year, I would probably be giving it to Symphony of the Night because of how big this is of a change.
Oh, I never noticed. There's a little rat in the rafters. I never saw him before.
Look at that little guy.
Oh my gosh, look at him go. Oh my God, okay, yeah, this game,
I love the little
guys.
details in the art, like when you kill the skeleton guys, their little head doesn't, like, explode and ding, ding, ding,
Yeah,
falls around
or
on
the bloody
ground.
zombies where
the
it's like...
animations, and, oh boy.
Oh, wrong way.
Where you slice the guys in half, too.
Yeah,
there's so much.
Oh
that
my God.
It's great.
So good.
The fluid animations, the pixel art, this is some of the best pixel art I've ever seen.
Oh, absolutely.
So we also have, as I just implied, we have our other Game of the Year award we like to give out, and it's specifically for the one that is kind of in hindsight. The one that you want to give as the influential Game of the Year. Which one do you think is the most important going forward?
Well, as much as at first I wanted to give it to Diablo before we made our choices, but the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, no, I want to say that that's actually for GoldenEye. Because look at what the first-person shooter genre is today, and without something like GoldenEye to have it on console, when it was mainly a PC-only thing,
right?
I don't think we would have had the landscape that we have now, for better or for worse.
Yeah, there would have been a massive change in at least the main... Oh, I love that eyeball in the background watching you.
Yes, I love him too. Oh,
sorry,
get out of here. No, it's fine. I hate this thing.
You guys are just watching us getting stoned. I did it funny. It doesn't happen often. Anyway, so yeah, GoldenEye, I agree. It's one of those games that just, like, it had such a big impact on the medium that even the corporations caught on and started making games to try and catch on in what it was. So yeah, very big, very important. My influential one, just one of the biggest ones going forward, and like you said, this is just such a hard year to choose. There's so many big ones that I am settling on Final Fantasy VII.
That's very fair.
If I'm, of course, you're also looking at Fallout too. It's another one of those. There's so many just RPGs that do
Symphony of the Night.
Symphony of the Night. There's so many RPGs that just push the boundary and just discover themselves for the first time this year. They almost just create like a new subgenre. Like, of them out. Like, Fallout is kind of its own thing. FF7 has discovered its own thing, and, well, Castlevania just kind of discovered and then completely chose 1 to 3 in Fallout for its intelligence. 1 to 3. It's
and
like,
for some later releases,
I've played other Castlevanias after this, but none of them were like this again.
Not usually, no.
No, I played the Mercury Steam one that we talked about in that one ranking episode.
Yes.
God, what was the name of that thing?
Mirror of Fate.
It's really long. It's like Shadow something, Mirror of Fate. Castlevania, Lords of Shadow, Mirror of Fate. The 3DS one.
Yes.
Oof, that's a mouthful.
It is.
But I wanted to quickly mention, just because it is going back to that Metroidvania-esque style of it. However, it's very action-y. This is from Mercury Steam, so think Metroid Samus Returns. So it's very... Not this game, it's close. The story is weird. But I mean, it's a Castlevania game. It's still it's like almost what I wanted. We have the Game Boy Advance games, which are not bad.
No, Aria of Sorrow is still one of my favorite Game Boy Advance games, if not again another one of my favorite Castlevania games.
Right. So we shouldn't neglect it entirely. I know we've kind of been picking on Castlevania, but it's not like, you know, Final Fantasy VII, going back to my influential of the year, where it's kind of figuring out so much about what you can do with telling a story in RPGs and how grand you can make it, what you can do with cinematic storytelling and how important it is. Because, I mean, sure, you could tell a big story in, like, Final Fantasy IV when you just have, like, sprite people, and there's not really cutscenes at all or anything, but you can still have people who come away from it going, wow, that story was great. I really loved, like, everything that I had with this, and the game was so much fun. But it's so different in 7. Because now it's almost like you get to play a long-form medium. Not even just like playing a movie, almost like an early Uncharted or like a Tomb Raider. But you're playing like a whole saga. It's so grand and so big. And I feel like that concept alone is something that so many people latched onto with nostalgia that they wanted to see in new games, and it affected their purchasing decisions.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is a really, really big year, and I am very terrified to say that next year's bigger.
Yeah, that's the terrible part. I mean, it's good. I mean,
it's great for the industry, but oh boy.
For these videos.
For these videos.
Oh,
We're trying our best, but you could tell clearly we love these games so much that we want to spend more time talking about them than what we have here. And we want to hear what you guys think for other games that came out this year. I know we also had to whittle down these lists that we always say. There's games that we just have to leave out because we do not have time.
No, like...
So yeah, there's so many. There's a lot of big things that happened this year. A lot of weird things happened this year. Like Pokemon had its famous Porygon episode where a bunch of Japanese kids had seizures, and like Nintendo had to go on safety control to make sure people are like, no, the games are still safe to play. There's a lot of other things that happen in gaming years, not just their releases, and that's kind of why I wanted to touch on the Gunpei toy thing at the beginning of this, to make sure that we do acknowledge the gaming year as a whole, because I bet you if there was like a big award show at the end of this, which should be happening in January, by the way. I don't know why we do these award shows in December. Just saying. We're the ones doing it right in January as we talk about 1997.
we gotta let it time to marinate, you know, really cement our opinions.
Anyway, I think Zach could keep playing Castlevania Symphony of the Night forever, but regardless, I am going to have to let you guys go here. Thank you all so much for tuning into this episode of HITBOX. If you enjoyed the show, you can help us keep it alive by supporting us on Patreon with the links in the show notes in this video's description. And for those of you on YouTube, remember to like the video and subscribe for more, and be sure to let us know what you thought of the show and what other topics you'd like to hear us cover in the future. And as always, special thanks to all of our amazing Patreon members.
See ya!